Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Freedom Adventure. Several videos ago, we installed a diesel heater into our ambulance camper conversion. And we didn't bother at that point to hook up a fuel tank in it. What I ended up using was like a little pickle jar or something in order to just do a quick test and make sure that the diesel heater was running. And although, yeah, it did run, obviously a pickle jar is not going to hold enough diesel to run it for very long. The thing of it is, I didn't really want to run the actual fuel jug that came with it. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. I just didn't like the way it looked. I didn't like how square it was. I wasn't real sure where I was going to mount it to. And reading into it a little bit and getting online, it looks like those things are kind of notorious for leaks as well. And not only that, but I wanted to minimize how often that I had to go into town for diesel. That being said, I knew I wanted to use a different style tank, but at that point in time, I wasn't really for sure what I was going to use. But what I ended up choosing was just a regular old 5-gallon can, just like you see right here. Now, this is a little bit taller and a little bit longer than a standard 5-gallon bucket, but it is still 5 gallons as close as I can tell. The reason I chose this particular one is 1, I had it. 2, it's a little bit more narrow than the other ones that I have as well, and it just happens to fit the application that I'm using like a glove. So yeah, it's a little bit old, it's a little bit worn, but for what it's going to be used for, it's just fine to use as a donor can, and that's what I did. Now, in order to get the diesel heater that's in the ambulance camper to go ahead and connect to this, I needed some way, some sort of connection in order to put on this in order to make that work. And scrolling through Insta several weeks ago, like probably months ago, I ended up seeing a company called Unethical Engineering, or I think on my billing statement, it called itself Unethical Manufacturing. Regardless of what they are, they offer a whole array of diesel heater accessories. I think they even sell diesel heaters for that matter, but the reason that I was there was to find whatever connections I needed to make this can work for our application. And it looked like they did have the products I needed. So I went ahead and I got online. Their website, it's a little bit confusing from what I can tell you, but I thought I ordered the correct stuff. I went ahead and placed the order. I get it coming. And now one thing I will mention is Unethical Engineering, they're not in the United States. They're in Canada. Not a big deal, but that means a couple of different things. 1, you got to pay shipping to get it to you if you're in the lower 48. And then 2, not only is there shipping involved, but there's also tariffs involved. Basically, what came down to be about, $22, $25 worth of product. By the time I got it to my doorstep, it ended up costing closer to $50. Now, I realize that there's other kits on the market that do the same thing, but I kind of thought the website was cool. Some of the fixtures that they've got on that website, they actually looked really high quality. I was impressed, at least, from what I could look on their website and see. So I did that. I went ahead and I ordered it. And it did. It took quite some time to get here. But the thing of it is, when you go to ordering something online, we've all been kind of spoiled by Amazon. We get stuff sometimes even like the same day we order it. So Amazon, in a sense, has raised the bar of expectation when it comes to shipping. I've got a different perspective, however, so if I'm not needing the product like right now and today, then I just go ahead and I order it. The way I look at it, 1 to 2 weeks is going to happen in my life, whether or not I order the product, so I might as well order what I want, and then just go ahead and wait it out. And I did. And I waited. And I waited. And finally it came in. I was pretty thrilled when it did. First impressions when I opened everything up, I was a little bit disappointed because what I thought I had ordered, and the way they even used the verbiage, is a quick disconnect kit. Now, when I think of quick disconnect, what I'm thinking of are little fittings where you press a button and the fitting comes apart. And that was not what I got. What I ended up getting was basically this. And although, yeah, technically maybe it's quick disconnect if you pull the hose off of it, but it's certainly not a quick disconnect fitting by what my expectations were. But no big deal. It would still work. I could still get it to work for the can. Again, I was a little bit disappointed because it wasn't exactly the product that I was expecting to receive, but whatever, this is what I got, let's make it work, right? Not really. What I ended up getting wasn't really a product that has a standpipe that goes down into the can. The way that it gets from this point to the bottom of the can was just simply by this rubber hose. And it actually had a different rubber hose that was attached to this, which was probably, I'm going to say, about this long right here. The problem with that rubber hose, if I were to cut this right now, this is what it would look like, like a big U. The hose curled back up and went straight towards the top of the can. Okay, that's not going to work. It's not going to go to the bottom of the can, so how's it supposed to get fuel? I jump on Google, I start looking for a solution. And what it said the solution was to go ahead and take your rubber hose and put it in boiling water. And I did that. I went ahead and I put the whole fitting, the hose and everything into the boiling water, and I let it boil. And I let it boil, and I let it boil some more. As a matter of fact, I think total, all in all, it was in boiling water for about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more. At that point, I was confident that I had this licked. Certainly, when I take this hose out of the water, it's going to relax, it'll be straight, and a product that we can go ahead and use here in the jug. I pulled it out of the water. It wasn't. This hose, and I will give Unethical Engineering that. This hose is actually a pretty good hose. It's super thick sidewalls. This isn't a hose that's going to kink or bind up. I can't take that away from them, but to use it in this application, it's not good for this application. It's not going to relax. I even came out to the shop after I got done. Boiling water didn't work, so I thought, you know what? I'm going to pull out a propane torch and I'm going to heat this up, and if it destroys it, it destroys it. If it works, great. At this point, it's kind of a vendetta. I've got to figure this out. Well, long story short, that rubber hose, or at least that piece of rubber hose, rest in peace. It's no longer with us here, but the one thing I did learn that day is no matter what, this rubber hose method to the bottom of this jug, it's not for me. It's not going to work. I abandoned ship. So that being said, I'm not going to go with that method, but there are a couple of good things about this setup that I will show you here in just a second. But I still needed something to get the diesel out of this can and up into my diesel heater, and what's that going to be? So I went back to the drawing board and I logged into Amazon, started searching around, and there's actually several different methods in order to do this. There's several different products out there that are designed to work as a standpipe in one of these 5-gallon jugs. And what I ended up coming up with, I don't remember the name of the company, but I will go ahead and I'll leave the link down in the comments. Something you're interested in, I can't recommend it enough. Once I get this hooked up and working, I'll go over another quick video to show how it is working, but what they sent was this. They bend it for shipping, not a big deal. You could sit there and manipulate this. You just be careful and it won't kink. This is probably about 2 feet long total, but as you can see, it's very, very adequate for the size of this can. But long story short, this isn't gonna come up out of the diesel and lose your prime for your diesel heater. This here absolutely would. So anyway, let me go ahead and show you a little bit closer up what the two products included, and I'll tell you a little bit what I do like about Unethical Engineering's product, and then what I do like about the one that I got off Amazon. Okay, so to start off with here, this is basically the jerry can adapter that I got from Unethical Engineering. As you can see, it's made out of plastic. It's got the 2 fittings, one here and one over here that screw into the little bulkhead piece. And then it goes into the can, and I don't have that all the way screwed down, but you kind of get the idea. It's actually a pretty simple setup. The other thing I wanted to show you here is this green hose comes with a Chinese diesel heater from, I think it's H-Calorie is the kind of heater that I've got. This is the hose that comes standard with it, and this is a little fuel filter that comes with it too. Today I was trying to pull this rubber hose off of this filter, and unfortunately I ended up boogering that up. If anybody's going to do it, it's me, and I certainly did. So here in just a little bit, I'm going to be ordering another one of these filters and having that delivered out here, hopefully later on this week. But what I was wanting to show you is the difference between this hose and the clear hose that comes with the Unethical Engineering kit. This is not the thickest stuff. I mean, it's certainly adequate to do what it's supposed to, I think, but it's just not really super thick. Some folks I've read online have experienced this stuff kind of kinking up, and when you go around tight corners, kind of kinking like that and impeding the flow of fuel. I haven't experienced that, but in all honesty, I haven't really been running a diesel heater very long either. But check this out. This is the hose that comes with Unethical's kit, and you can see it's a whole lot thicker. It's definitely got thicker sidewalls to it, and I could all but pretty well guarantee you that this is not going to kink. There's not much flex in this. It's pretty rigid. Looking at them side by side, the interior diameter is about the same, but you can clearly see the outer sidewalls of these things. This one here, it's definitely the winner. So at least in terms of the hose, Unethical's got the OEM beat without a doubt, hands down. Now, they also included these little clamps here, and these clamps are a mile ahead of the little clamps that come with the factory diesel heater. Those things you could pretty much pinch down with your fingers. They're not real strong, and they actually kind of come loose. These clamps are pretty amazing. You could just look at them and tell that they are definitely much higher quality than the little standard clamps that come with your diesel heater from the beginning. Also, something that came with the kit from Unethical, actually I think I ordered it separately, but either way, it is a pretty neat little piece of equipment, is this little check valve right here. And you could see just from the size of my finger here that this isn't very big. The diesel comes in this direction and it goes out of it this direction. And once it does, this check valve does not allow diesel to come back in. Essentially what happens is the diesel sucks up into the heater, and if it turns off, that diesel can flow back into your tank. Well, with this check valve in place, it lets it flow that direction, but not this direction. So it's going to sit there and hold that fuel in the line and keep that from happening. If these things lose their prime, you're going to have to prime it, because it's going to take a long time of that fuel pump sitting there clicking and clicking and clicking, and probably several cycles before it totally pumps that fuel up into the system. So yeah, I think this is a pretty trick little piece of equipment here, and I'm really glad I was able to go ahead and get at least that purchase from them anyway. Another accessory that I purchased from Unethical was this little breather, and you can't see it because it's installed right now, but on the other side of this plastic, it's got a little nut that screws on from the back side, and it's got a rubber gasket on this side and also another rubber gasket on the inside of the can. You simply drill a hole in the side of your can, and what I used was a piece of MIG wire to go ahead and feed through the cap, underneath, and then out of here. So I took the nut from the back side, and I went ahead and I fed it through, and then basically hand tightened this piece down onto it. And once again, this is essentially a check valve. It allows air to be sucked into the can, but not out. So what happens is when the fuel level starts dropping, sometimes you'll see a gas can, it'll start sucking the sidewalls of that can in because it's not got a breather on it. Well, this is that breather. So as the fuel level drops, the pressure actually, I don't want to say equalizes inside, but it keeps the pressure from turning negative and then sucking the sides of the can in. That could also, if that's happening, what that also means is that fuel pump that you've got is going to be working overtime because it's working against that negative vacuum. This is the kit that came from Amazon. Once again, this is a pretty cut and dried install. This is how it's going to fit. Just like this fit, the cap, it comes off. So this is kind of what it looks like when the cap's installed on it. And essentially this just, of course, screws down onto your jerry can. So installed on the piece of equipment here, you could see it, basically you're just going to take this and you're going to feed it down into your can and screw it on. Not a big deal. All I've got to do is trim this to the length that I want it. And in this case, I'm going to guess it's probably going to be about here. But before I cut that here in a minute, I'm going to go ahead and measure that out and just get it as good as I can. Overall, this looks like a pretty high quality piece of equipment. I mean, it's certainly going to do its job anyway. There's not really much to be said about it. It's just, it's just a tube with a threaded end on it. The rubber hose goes on the end here, and then of course the other end goes into the tank. No big deal. So I guess the next step here, I wasn't really going to go ahead and mess with this tonight, but you know what, we might as well. I can't do the actual installation up to the heater right now because I'm going to be waiting on that fuel filter to show up. I kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit on that earlier, but it happens, right? So whatever. We're going to do what we can here tonight anyway. First thing I got to do, I guess, is kind of figure out a rough measurement from this point to the end of the tube and just kind of see where do I want it to hit the bottom of the jug at. I'm going to go ahead and straighten this out just a little bit more. I don't know what kind of metal this is made out of, but it's pretty soft and it bends pretty easily, so that's definitely a good thing. I'm not sitting here having to fight that. And when you're doing stuff like this, it's much better to go ahead and cut things a little bit long than, of course, a little bit short. In this case, I'm going to err on the side of long, I think, and I'm going to cut that right about here. Now, of course, this isn't surgical. Nothing I do is. So we're just going to grab the old Sharpie, mark that where I want to cut it. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a little cutoff wheel here right quick, and we're going to go ahead and cut that piece of tube off. In terms of the rough length of it, I think we've pretty well got that. We'll see here in just a second. So I think I'm going to go ahead and cut maybe about 1 more inch off of this. That way it's more of a straight run going down. Guys, you might have to manipulate this several times. You can see I'm certainly doing that here in order to get it to work. And it's never going to be like a perfect situation. You're never going to suck every last drop out of here. At some point, it will start sucking air, but you just try to get it as good as you can, and that's what I'm trying to do here. Okay, still touching the bottom. Part of me wants to cut a little more off, but I know I could get this to fit. Either way, no matter how this ends out, it's going to be better than that plastic tube that is just going to be down there floating and hanging around. We're going to say that's probably right where that's going to reside here at this point. Now, sitting here looking at this, I'm wondering if it's better to point this little petcock going this direction or the other direction. I'm not really sure that that matters. But if I do point it a different direction, it's going to twist that tube and it's going to be pointing this way, this way. I'm going to take a look at that. Okay, I've decided to go ahead and turn this petcock and go this direction. Turns out with it going this direction, it's just going to be a little bit too tight in terms of tolerance while it's mounted inside of the ambulance. Because I am turning this, like I said, that's going to change the direction of the way. Actually, that's not necessarily going to hurt things too bad. Okay, got this thing kind of bent back around, and I don't know if it's perfect or not. I guess we're going to find out the first time we get down to a truly low situation of fuel. But what we've got here is essentially 5 gallons of fuel, and I want to say that the original tank of this carries maybe a little bit more than a gallon. That being said, this is a substantial amount of runtime, and odds are we'll end up refilling this can before we ever get down that low anyway. Now I've done this, I've got diesel all over me, and I've got it all over the can. It is what it is. I'll grab a little paint thinner, try to wipe this can down a little bit so it's not quite so greasy, and we're going to call it a night here. We're going to get to the point of installing this here soon. Once I get that new fuel filter in, we're going to hook this up, get it primed, go ahead and hook up our little one-way check valve and get this thing working. But the point of tonight's video was really to just kind of showcase this little nifty deal that I bought off of Amazon here. And I want to say this was like $17.99. It sure beats the $50 that I ended up spending from Unethical, but in all fairness, I did get a couple of other things from Unethical, which includes this little check valve. I want to say this little vent here that I've got on the side of my can. I want to say that was like maybe like $5 or $7 or something. It wasn't terrible. I did score some pretty cool clamps from Unethical as well. And whether or not this stuff's really worth 50 bucks, no, not really. Everything I need came with a kit from Amazon, but the little check valve is a pretty nifty little item to have. I've also got this, and I could repurpose this. I could actually, if I wanted to, I can go ahead and put a little piece of rubber like this on the end of it, and then take a piece of pipe and kind of make my own standpipe for another version of this. It basically would act the same way. It's just got a few more pieces to it. So if any of this has been of value to you, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm a little channel, so every watch hour counts, and of course every subscriber counts as well. Some of these videos, they're pretty basic like the one tonight, but I do have some other really neat videos on our off-grid property and also the conversion process from our old school ambulance over into our miniature Class C motorhome. So yeah, man, if this is something that you're into, like and subscribe. I think you'll really get a kick out of it. And I think there's a lot of value in it if you're doing an ambulance camper conversion yourself, or for that matter, if you're doing any camper conversion yourself. Folks, that's all I got though for tonight. So happy adventures. Join me next time. I'll look forward to seeing you there. Take care, y'all.